Man installed a bomb on the rooftop and covered it with a mattress to reduce dust and muffle the sound. What came next was the most crucial step. Taking a deep breath, he glanced down at the crowded street below. The police seemed to hear the noise, but it was instantly drowned out by screams from the civilians. Nick finally breathed a sigh of relief. They had blown a massive hole in the rooftop, which happened to be directly above the building's ventilation system. Nick was so on edge at this point that he actually asked for a cigarette. He took a few casual drags before handing it back to Lisa, who had finally obtained the saliva sample she needed. What the police didn't realize was that this too was part of Nick's plan. The authorities quickly identified the jumper.
Listen up.
Go.
Not sure I got an ID on your jumper. An escaped convict.
Nick Cassidy.
Cassidy. The cop that stole the diamond off David Englander?
$40 million diamond. I knew I recognized this mutt.
And coincidentally, this hotel was also owned by David. Directly across the street stood the jewelry exchange where Nick had been arrested. Combined with the suicide note he'd left on the table, the police began to understand that he was trying to prove his innocence. Nick's former partner learned about the situation and hoped Lisa could talk him down. When Lisa pressed him for answers, Nick finally told her the truth. 2 years ago, he'd been assigned to escort diamonds to a company, but during transport, 2 masked men had knocked him unconscious. The shipment disappeared, and he was framed as the robber and sent to prison. Nobody believed he was innocent, which was why he'd resorted to these desperate measures to clear his name. Since David's business had failed and he was facing bankruptcy at the time, Nick believed David had orchestrated everything as an insurance scam. When Lisa asked who might have attacked him, Nick admitted he wasn't certain of their identities, but he suspected David had bribed police officers to do his dirty work. In other words, at least 2 corrupt cops within the department had been involved in the whole scheme. Meanwhile, police located a security guard and prepared to inspect the exchange. To buy his brother more time, Nick pulled out cash and threw it into the air. The crowd below immediately erupted into chaos, with people scrambling on the ground to collect the money. This successfully delayed police action. At the same time, David had summoned the police captain, who turned out to be the very corrupt officer Nick had mentioned. There was an important company meeting scheduled in 2 hours, and David wanted this situation resolved quickly. After confirming the vault's security, the captain decided to launch an assault on Nick. Since he was an escaped convict with potential for violence, the captain gave Lisa a final 15-minute deadline. If she couldn't handle Nick by then, he would take command of the operation. News outlets began reporting on Nick's crimes, and the crowd below was actually urging him to jump and prove his innocence. Aside from Lisa, no one believed Nick anymore. On the other side of the story, the 2 men at the exchange had used a passcode to successfully enter the building's vault. They measured the distance on the safe, then used a diamond drill to create a small hole. Next, they inserted a funnel and poured in nitride, which destroyed the molecular structure between the steel panels. Finally, they inserted a steel pin aimed at the gears and shattered the hardened steel with a single hammer blow. The 2 men effortlessly opened the safe, revealing David's accumulated wealth from years of business. However, after searching extensively, they couldn't find the diamond.